Aaron Whitlow,
Brandon Spivey here.
and we are the Markout Movie Podcasters. Brandon, tell the lovely people what we're doing today.
Well, today we're going to be doing a little review of a 1991 comedy classic. Well, in my opinion, City Slickers. But before we do that, we got 5 fun facts for you. Are you ready for them, Aaron?
I'm ready for
You're
it.
really going to like this first one.
Okay.
You're really going to like it. I promise you. Because you love the guy, you're going to like it. Phil was originally supposed to be played by Rick Moranis.
Really?
Yeah. But his wife got diagnosed with cancer. So he left the project. So it's fun and it's sad at the same time, but it was fun because Rick Moranis was going to be Phil. And I would have loved to see that. Even though I love Daniel Stern as Phil, but Rick Moranis.
I mean, you can't beat Rick Moranis as Phil.
No.
That would have been great. That was a good fun fact because I'm a huge Rick Moranis fan. Been a fan of his. I would say I became a Rick Moranis fan with Ghostbusters, as a lot of people did, but it carries over from Ghostbusters. I liked him in Parenthood. I liked him in Little Giants. I liked him in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I loved him in the whole series of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Blew Up the Kid, Shrunk Ourselves. I'm a Rick Moranis fan, and I can't wait, Brandon, until the day that he graces us on screen again. So that's facts. Him and Michael J. Fox, those are my guys right there. I like to see him again.
You'll be seeing him soon, hopefully. He's supposed to come back for the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids sequel series on Disney Plus. So I don't know how big of a role you have, but it'd be good to see him. All right, fun fact number 2. This is kind of funny for me because we both, I think, like Charles Bronson, right? I mean, we like him. It's just funny. He got mad. He was even asked to be Curly in this movie. What do you think about that? He got angry over it.
Now, I just don't understand why he would get angry over playing Curly, but also
I have a theory.
Okay, I'm ready to hear it.
I think he's like Steven Seagal. He takes himself too serious. You know, I don't think he ever did a comedy. Maybe he did earlier in his day, but when he got famous, he didn't do comedy. I think it was just he saw this as a comedy, maybe a little spoof on the Western genre. I was angry about it because he started in the Westerns. So, there's just a theory he took himself a little bit too seriously.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. This was also number 3, Jake Gyllenhaal's acting debut.
Really?
You didn't notice him?
It was. Yeah, I noticed him. I didn't realize it was his acting debut. You know, it's funny in watching the movie. I've seen this movie Lord knows how many times. I never thought that was Jake Gyllenhaal until in watching it again, like here this week. I was like, that's Jake Gyllenhaal. Like I was like, how did I miss this? That was Jake Gyllenhaal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I didn't. Of course, I didn't notice it then because I didn't know who he was. I didn't even know Danielle Harris was in this movie. She has one scene.
Whoa!
She's in the classroom with him.
Was she?
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah, sadness, Aaron, sadness. Yeah, she was in the classroom with him when
I totally missed that. And I hate that I missed that.
I guess it was Parent Day or something.
Yeah, I remember that.
Call that day. I forget what they called it, but yeah, she was there too. Okay, fun fact number 4: Bruno Kirby was allergic to horses, so he had to have an injection every day of shooting when he was getting on a horse.
That is it's not fun for him. God rest his soul. But it is a fun fact. I did not know that he was allergic to horses. It would be hard thing to do is be allergic to horses and then do a movie where you are interacting with horses like all the time.
Yeah. All right, last one. Daniel Stern bought his own cattle ranch after filming City Slickers.
I can see that. If anybody does it, Daniel Stern. Daniel Stern has a another soft place in my heart. Uh, my introduction to him, as many people's introduction to him was, is in Home Alone. That was for me. That was my introduction to him. It might not be for you, but Home Alone was my introduction to him, and he's just one of those guys that I like over the years, and I've never ceased from liking. So
Yeah, Home Alone was definitely number one. Actually, I think it was Home Alone 2. Because classic me, I always watch the sequel before the original for whatever reason. But yeah, I think it was Home Alone 2 for me. I know, I'm weird. I do things backwards, Aaron. Wait, everybody knows.
reverse, put
Yeah.
it in reverse, Terry. All right. I don't know if you
So
get that
that was
reference.
my
But anyway,
5 fun facts about City Slickers.
there's some good fun facts. Now we're gonna go ahead and talk about the movie. If I can just lay my phone down, I lay it on my lap. It's doing fine right there. But City Slickers. Let me go ahead and get you with the synopsis of this movie. I'm gonna take my synopsis this time around from IMDb, as I usually do, because I like their synopsis. Uh, on the verge of turning 40, an unhappy Manhattan yuppie is roped into joining his two friends on a cattle drive in the Southwest. This was directed by Ron Underwood, and the writers is Lowell Gans, Babalu Mandel. Stars Billy Crystal, Jack Palance, Daniel Stern, and Bruno. Let me get his name. I'm sorry, you just said it. Bruno Kirby. And some more people. Some more people. This came out in 1991. Brandon, hit us with the numbers.
All right, the numbers of this, and I won't do that again. It got a 6.7 out of 10 on IMDb, 4 out of 5 like this on Empire, not the show, not the show. 85% like this on Google, and the Rotten Tomato scores of this 90% on the tomato meter, so it's fresh, and the audience scores a little bit down. Shocking. 64%. So that's your scores. I'm upset about the audience score there.
I am too. I thought that the audience was would be a little higher. It's crazy watching this movie. And it's funny because I seen this movie in '91 back when I was 11 years old. So it's funny to look at it and think about, like, I looked at it as like, oh, these adults are having fun. But now in watching it as an adult, uh, I'm like in Billy Crystal's shoes, or in Daniel Stern's shoes, or you kind of feel what the characters feel because you
Yeah.
have had life experiences that kind
Yeah.
of drive you to, like. So for me, it was like looking at the movie new for the first time, but from a different perspective. And it's
Yeah.
funny how movies can do that. Like from the time you're small to the time you're an adult, a movie can just change the way that you see it and perceive it and experience it. Your thoughts?
I agree. I also got like Wild Hogs feel to it, like how they are. Which of course Wild Hogs would have, kind of copied this, but still I felt that, But yeah, I totally related to Billy Crystal. He wasn't I don't want to say he wasn't, he was lost. He where he was at in his life. He was just kind of lost. It wasn't focused. I could really relate to it, a few years ago, but oh man, I felt this was this is my Billy Crystal movie. This is the one I always remember Billy Crystal in. I know it what was the movie he did with Meg Ryan? I know
Uh,
that whole
uh,
thing, but
uh, um, um, uh, man, when Harry met Sally.
yeah, with Harry Met Sally.
I
I
almost
mean,
went Sleepless in Seattle, but that's not them.
it's Tom. It's Tom. But yeah, I think most people see that's the most iconic Billy Crystal movie. But for me, it was always City Slickers. Uh, I don't know why. It just always stuck with me through life. When I think of Billy, I think of City Slickers. But I love him in this. I love Daniel Stern. He's in a verbally abusive relationship. I it's Daniel Stern. I mean, that's just him. I would expect nothing less from a Daniel Stern character.
We're gonna get into that first. Let me say, just based off of what you were saying, uh, my favorite Billy Crystal movie is actually has always been. Oh, like I love this one. This is like up there, but it'd be My Giant. That movie is
I've
just
never seen that.
such a sweet movie. And he did it in honor of Andre the Giant because Andre was his friend, and I was a huge Andre the Giant fan, and so that movie kind of stands out for me. But yeah, let's get to it real quick. So, um, Mitch Robbins, I assume he creates jingles. Is that your assumption?
Yeah, yeah, that was pretty much my assumption. He creates jingles.
Yeah, so he creates jingles. He's in essentially a job that he doesn't love anymore. He's in a marriage that is okay, but it's not the greatest marriage that it could be. It seems like they had a good relationship, but he just he just in a muh type of state. Uh, the movie though starts with him running with the bulls in Pamplona,
Yeah,
which I honestly forgot about that opening. I forgot about that as that is the beginning, but it was a good beginning. It just kind of shows these friends always get together like once a year to do some extravagant, adventurous type of vacations. But it seems like Billy or Mitch, his the character doesn't really feel a thrill of it anymore. It's like he's just in a stagnant place in his life. Is that what came up for
yeah.
you?
Oh yeah, definitely. He feels stuck, you know, in everything. It's not really. I don't think it's the marriage. I don't think it's really the job. It's just in life. He just feels stuck, and he doesn't really know what to do about it. You know, I can never think of his name. I know it's Bruno Kirby, but I don't remember his character's name.
Uh, Ed, I want to say. Let me see. Ed Farilla.
Yeah, he felt like he was kind of the leader that kind of, they did whatever he said, but he's not the main character.
Yeah, he's not. You know who he put me in the mind of? I loved his voice, man, in this movie, but I kept picturing Joe Pesci. I kept picturing
Yeah,
him every time he spoke. I keep picturing Joe Pesci, and they've been in a movie together. There's in the Super together. But yeah, so but he was one of my favorite characters in it. Fun fact for you, Ed Bruno did not return
yeah,
for the sequel because he wanted them to change the script, and instead of changing the script and pleasing him, they decided to go ahead and write him out and bring in John Lovitz, which we could argue whether or not those were the best or the worst. We'll talk about it next week, I guess, with that.
yeah. It's been a while since I've seen that one. I liked it when I originally saw it, but it does not hold up to the original. I'm not saying it's because of John Lovitz. I think there's a lot of mistakes, but we'll get into that next week.
Yeah, we'll get into it. But we know that, so that's where Mitch is. Mitch is just in a stagnant place. It's not because of his marriage or anything. He dreads feeling older, getting older.
Yeah.
That just seems like the thing that he really fears in life is becoming older. He's almost 40. He's 39 in this movie. Then you have Daniel Stern's character. Uh, his name was Phil.
Yep.
He works at the grocery store, and he's in a loveless marriage. He's married to a lady who he feels the need to constantly fake being asleep instead of interacting with her, uh, which is pretty hilarious that he does this quite often,
Yeah,
and
he does.
and he gets in trouble. You want to tell them how he gets in trouble, and also who he got in trouble with? Did you catch that?
I know who she is, but I don't know who she is. So when I get to it, you can tell me all about. I know what movie she's in, but I don't know who she is.
Oh, I'll
Essentially,
tell you. I got
But
you.
yeah,
I got
they're
you.
at like a dinner party. I think it's Mitch's birthday, if I'm not mistaken. And him and his wife are kind of getting into it. She's wanting to leave. He's like, Mitch hasn't even opened up his gifts yet. And shockingly, this girl shows up. She's 20, but she looks like 18 or 15. But she shows up. She's a cashier at the grocery store. And she thinks she's pregnant. And the wife's like, why is she telling you?
He's like,
You
that's
know,
because I'm his boss.
you know,
I'm her boss.
yeah, I'm our boss. He says, did you sleep? I don't remember the exact quote, but it all hell broke loose right there. Because they think he's the father of this baby. As far as the girl though, I know her from another movie, Stephen King film, Maximum Overdrive. But I don't really know who she is. So
Okay, I'm gonna
the
have
floor is
to.
yours.
All right, I'm gonna tell you. So, all right, I know her also in a movie called The Legend of Billie Jean, also starring Helen Slater, who's in this movie as well. She played like Billie Jean's like friend in that movie. But most people will recognize her voice as the voice of Lisa Simpson. That's Yardley Smith.
Oh,
She does the voice of Lisa Simpson on The Simpsons. Done it for years. When I hear her talk, I can't help but to hear Lisa Simpson. So Lisa Simpson essentially got pregnant in this movie. Think about it. Maybe you don't want to think about it.
I don't know where to go with that. We're talking about Lisa Simpson getting pregnant now on the Markout Movie Podcast. Oh my! What's
but
next, Aaron?
no, that's who Yardley Smith uh, does the voice of Lisa Simpson. And so I kind of marked out when she came on screen because I recognized her and I totally forgot she was in this movie. I was like, oh, that's Lisa Simpson. But yeah, yeah, people most likely would know her from Maximum Overdrive. I knew her initially from The Legend of Billie Jean, but she's the she's the cashier that got it on with Phil in a parked car.
Park car.
They made a scene at the made a scene at this birthday party. It was so terrible and cringy. Oh my goodness! But yeah,
I can
so
see it
he got
happening. I
huh?
mean, if someone got somebody pregnant at a grocery store in a car, I can see it happening at a birthday party. I mean, it all breaks loose at a birthday party. I can see it.
Where else would it not break loose? But anyway, so that happens, and then we get over to Ed's character. Ed is just a womanizer. It seems like he's just a ladies' man. That's what I got from him. He's a ladies' man, adventurous, but he doesn't want to commit because he has a fear of commitment because his parents went through a messy divorce because his father was a. We found out later that his father was a guy that cheated on his mother, and he just kind of held that against him, but also fell into that type of uh, lifestyle. That's where I
Yeah.
got from his character.
Yeah, as he said in the movie, it was the best and worst day of his life when his father left. So, yeah, it's sad. I mean, then you see him grow up to kind of be like his father. But you always hear that you grow up to be your parents. You always hear that. But I liked Ed. He just didn't stand out to me as much as Phil or Mitch for whatever reason. I mean, I like him. I'm sad that he's not in the sequel. I don't know the reasons.
I told you the reasons. That was the reason.
Well, I know, but I don't know what he wanted to change. What about his character did he want to change? I mean,
I don't know. Like I don't know what I don't know. I don't have that answer. I don't know. But I missed him in the sequel. And that's probably my issue. We're gonna get to it next week, but that's probably my issue with the sequel. Is I was like, who is this guy? Because John Lovitz was there. I'm like, as a kid, imagine seeing this as a kid, a
this
teenager,
is why
probably
it
at that
don't
point.
work. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's why it don't work. This is why it don't work. Mitch had a birthday party. His brother was not there. John Lovitz is supposed to be the brother, right? That's what I got from the synopsis of it. But he wasn't at his birthday party. But maybe it's been years since I've seen it. Maybe they explain why he's not been in Mitch's life or something.
And I don't even think they even mentioned they had a brother in the first one. Like I honestly
No, they
don't.
didn't.
Yeah, so it's like
No, they didn't.
the way it came across to me, we ain't even got into the movie yet, but the way it came across to me is that Mitch, Ed, and Phil has been lifelong friends since they were
Yeah.
kids, and they never mentioned Mitch's snotty nosed little brother or anything like that. They just always mentioned themselves. So I always felt like that's all they really had is one another, and there's no mentioning whatsoever of a brother. So it just didn't work. Now if they would have said that it was his brother-in-law or something like that, then that would have been more acceptable, I guess, or something like that. But anyway, that's next week's. But so they decide essentially to go to this cattle drive, um, and when they get there, Helen Slater's there as Bonnie. There is the Ben and Jerry type of dudes. Uh,
Yeah. I love
and
David Paymer. I love David Paymer.
yeah, and that's the dude that's from what did he in
He's in a lot. He was in a lot of stuff.
No Holds Barred. No Holds Barred.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Same
And
guy.
he was also in the Suburban Command. No, he wasn't.
No,
I
that's
can't
that's
keep saying
Christopher
that's
Lloyd.
Christopher Lloyd. But he was in another movie that's very similar. I forget what it is, but he's a father and he's been beaten down, but he becomes like he toughens up. He's a really good character actor.
Yeah.
Really good character actor. He always plays the little dweebish or the little henchman of the villainous guy, or he does play sometimes the sensitive character that grows a pair to it's a really good. We blanked out there. Him and then
Yeah.
his brother, Barry Shalowitz, Josh Mostel. He was in a lot of films as well. Then we
I
have
know him
Bill.
mostly for Billy Madison
Yep. Bill
principal.
Henderson was Ben Jessup. And then also Phil Lewis was Steve Jessup. Phil Lewis, y'all might know him mainly from The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. Uh, he was in that. He was in that show. Uh, he's been in a lot of other things as well. He was in Heather's. But yeah, it was really cool just to see those guys in the movie. And but the main event of the movie, in my opinion, Brandon, is the late great Jack Valance. Jack Palance, I'm sorry. He was in this movie. He's always played that cowboy
Yeah.
and tough guy. And I'm glad that he was in this movie because
Yeah.
he makes sense as Curly. I honestly can't see no one else as Curly.
Yeah. I mean, he is Curly. When I think of Jack, I've seen him in a lot of movies as a villain. I mean, he's the villain in Tango and Cash, Young Guns. But Curly stands out to me. He was in Compton Robertson's with Chevy Chase. I mean, I love the guy. He's missed today in Hollywood. His presence, I love. He always had a presence on film, and he made me smile. I love Curly though. Watching it this time though, because I didn't think it like he wasn't in it a whole lot. You know, he's kind of just the second act, really, if you really think about it. Just in the second act, you
Yeah,
know.
you know what?
But he
Yeah,
had a big presence throughout the film. You think he's in it the whole time, but really, like, I didn't really realize that he was only in it for a short amount of time.
yeah, I would agree with you. I was actually I looked at the time. Spoilers, if y'all haven't seen this, then come on, guys. But anyway, um, so I looked at the time at the moment in which he dies in the movie, and was
Yeah,
like, we still got a lot of movie left because
yeah,
I didn't realize that it happened so early. I always figured that it happened a little later in it.
yeah. I thought
Uh,
it happened like near the last 20 minutes of the movie.
like
So, oh,
maybe in my mind, I thought he survived to a lot longer in the film. I just maybe it's in my mind because like you said, that's the best way that you put it, man. It was his presence. His presence continued through the rest of the movie, even with him not being there.
Yeah.
Uh, it just like he was a good cowboy. He was a good cowboy. Uh, like he helped get these two big farmhands off of Helen Hunt, not Helen Hunt, Helen Slater.
Later. Yeah.
Yeah, not and no relation to Christian Slater. You'll think so, but no, they're not related. Anyway, they were in the same movie together too. I know that's random, but anyway, but you'll think that yeah, he gets them off of him. Uh, he was a scary type of guy, but he was really gentle, and like especially when him and not Phil, Mitch goes off and have to do the side mission together, uh, and learn, and Mitch stopped looking at Curly as a just an ominous Undertaker type of mysterious guy, and started looking at him as a human being, and it was my favorite part of the movie is just their relationship together.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That it was always funny because when I because Mitch is scared of him. He's intimidated by Curly, and he's talking about him. He's walking up to him behind him. Everyone's starting to notice it. He's behind me, isn't he? I always find that scene funny, even though you see it countless times in films. But in this film in particular, it was almost like rewatching it for the very first time. It brought a smile to my face. I laughed throughout the whole movie. Uh, it it's timeless. I'm not saying this means as much to me as like a Back to the Future or anything, but it's up there for me. And it was a timeless cowboy western comedy, and I had a ball. But I do agree with you. Their relationship kind of takes over the whole movie. Essentially, they bond in just a matter of days, and Curly teaches him that one thing. What's that one thing, Aaron?
And one thing is, I don't know.
There's only one thing that matters in life, Aaron.
Yeah,
But
that
he
one
can't tell you
thing.
what it is.
Yeah, because the one thing is different for everybody.
Everybody
The
else,
one
it's different.
thing for me is different from the one thing for you. That's why I said
Maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. But it was a brilliant little sign and a great little thing to actually now for me to carry on in my life. That one thing, find that
Yeah.
one thing that sticks out to you. Um, and I just like the like so uh, Mitch when he first got there, he has a problem with not taking anything serious. He doesn't take he didn't take his running with the Bulls and Pamplona serious. He didn't take his trouble at work serious. He didn't take his issues with his friends serious. You know, crack jokes and stuff like that about his everything happening with Phil. But and even when he got to the cattle ranch and stuff and was going on the cattle drive, he's trying to make coffee, create a stampede, kind of damaged a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and he just didn't take things serious. Not until Curly pulled him to the side and made him start taking things serious, made him start looking at things from a different perspective, and Phil becomes that cowboy that he needed to be, um, and so he actually surpassed not Phil. I'm sorry, Mitch. He actually surpasses Phil and Ed. In
Yeah.
there in being that guy. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when we meet Norman. Hello. We meet Norman the cow, or
Yeah.
the calf rather. Um, that scene always that scene had me cracking up for several reasons. One, uh, Mitch is so outside of his comfort zone in doing this.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
he has to deliver this calf. Uh, he takes off his gloves and stuff, and he has his watch on. But he puts his hands in, and then he pulls out like all the moisture on his hand. He's like, he says, "This wasn't on the brochure."
Yep. And it flung off. Just
It flung out.
yeah.
It's just great. That's great physical comedy. Like people don't even think about that as physical comedy. They think physical comedy is just falling down, pratfalls, things like that. Physical comedy is how you use your body to convey humor. He used
Yeah.
it by pulling his hand out in that motion with just right amount of gooiness on it was hilarious. It's like this wasn't on the brochure, and he said it with such a straight face, like what did y'all get me into? Type of thing. I loved it, man. I loved it.
That is a great scene, though. Uh, has tremendous heart as well as comedy. I mean, it's hilarious. His expressions alone when he's going inside. I don't want to talk about it, but he's going inside her, the cow, and he says, "Do you?" I think Carly says, "Do you feel the head?" I feel legs, and he's like, "Pull it out." It's like I don't want to. I mean, it's just it was a great scene. It had heart. It had a lot of comedy, and and he finally pulls the calf out, and it's such a sweet, tender moment. And then Curly shoots the cow, the mama cow. She was
Yeah, because
suffering.
she was
And
suffering.
Mitch was like, "What'd you do that for?" But yeah, you had that sweet, tender moment. Then you get that scene where he had to kill because she was suffering.
But the thing about it is too, it was out of mercy that he
Yeah,
had
it
to
was out of
do it.
mercy.
Yeah, it wasn't like you see that's juxtaposed with later on with the villainous dudes that is a part of the crew. What they were trying to do to the cow,
I
uh,
love that scene.
versus what you sick man. Uh,
No, what happened with Phil? How he just stood up and just
we're gonna get there. We get there.
oh,
We
that
get there.
scene. I
We
love
get
that
there.
scene.
We get there. All right, real quick, because so a lot has happened, but um, so that's when Phil, not Phil, but that's when Mitch and that's when Curly solidified their relationship a lot more,
Yeah.
and it became closer. And he actually put a hand on Mitch's uh, shoulders and said, "You did, good job, cowboy," or something like that. Just kind of made him feel like and he also told him somewhere the best feeling in life is driving in a herd, and that leads to later on. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just that time between Curly and Mitch was was like the heart of the movie. It was more
Yeah.
heart, but that was to me like the core of the movie. And that moment that Curly goes and dies, but it's just like he quietly dies, uh, and it just it's like just a lot of the soul of the film left when Curly's character died. In my opinion, it's not that it was bad or negative. It's just you know he's missed. His character was missed.
Yeah.
Like you said, Jack Palance is missed in real life. So
Yeah. He was missed. I mean, greatly missed. But it did slow things down. But and that would be my gripe if I had any gripes towards the movie is that you killed Curly when you really didn't have to, or maybe you did because it changed Mitch's perspective towards life and everything. He changed him. He was that one thing he needed, because he was so lost. Curly found him and set him straight. you know, but yeah, he was missed. I mean, it was a sad moment, but I love when they buried him and they're like, someone should say something.
yeah,
They're like, no one's like, I don't know what to say. So Mitch ends up giving a eulogy about him. And It was just that was touching and funny at the same time because no one knew what to say
Right.
because they didn't know him, and Mitch knew him the best apparently.
Yeah. Who knew that Mitch would end up knowing him the best? But yeah. So after he dies, they try to keep going, um, and I think somewhere in the midst of there, that's when we get to the scene where we said we was going to talk about the drunk cowboys
Yeah,
uh, harassing the calf Norman
yeah.
and putting trying to put a gun, which you could not. If this was does this hold up, it wouldn't hold up because there is several things that doesn't hold up about this movie. One, the overuse of landline telephones, like the fact that there's landline telephones in this movie automatically dates this movie. The fact that there's cassette tapes used in this movie dates this movie. Uh, I never realized how much 91 was still like 88, 89 because it felt like 88, 89 watching this movie. But it just, those dates the movie. But then also, you cannot put a gun in the mouth or the head or in the face of a animal on screen like that these days. You can't do that. That is a no-no.
No, you can't. People will go completely ballistic. I mean, they do it with dog movies as it is. You put a dog in a certain situation, they go crazy. You put a gun in its mouth, you got lawsuits.
Yeah, yeah. You can't do that. You can't. And also, one of the drunk cowboys calls uh, Mitch the F word, but a derogatory term towards things that we shouldn't say. You can't do that. You cannot. This is not a doesn't hold up. I just want to point that out that you can't do that. But it does go to a moment that you mentioned, and that is all right. So Phil's character in this whole movie is he takes crap from everyone.
Everyone.
He's been bullied. He's been stepped on. He doesn't really want to work for his stepfather's grocery store. He was forced to work for the stepfather's grocery store. His wife forces him to do whatever she wants him to do. Uh, he just is a punching bag and been bullied. What happens? I'm gonna let you tell the story. What happens with Phil?
Phil just he kind of snaps. He's like, "That is it." He gets up, he gets all up in their faces, and he's just going off. And you know, Ed and Mitch are like, "Well, what's going on? What's he doing? Don't!" And somehow he gets the gun right. Yeah, he gets the gun. He's pointing it, and it's just I could relate to him so much in that moment when you just have had enough, and you don't get who's in your way. You're saying what you need to say, and it may not even be about them. And I don't even think it was about them, really. I think it was more towards his wife.
It's more towards his life. It's more towards
his life. Yeah, his life. It really wasn't about what they were doing to the calf. It was he just had enough.
He says, I've lost my wife. I've lost my kids are taken away from me. This. He says, and I got a rash from making in the wood and making in the bushes. You know, and so, but you know, it's a moment where you're like, way to go, Phil. But then you like feel so bad for Phil because even when Mitch and Ed goes to him and say, hey man, you get a chance to do a redo or a do over. And he's like, how much of a do over can it be for me if my wife has left me and I don't get to see my kids and I'm losing everything and I'm homeless essentially? How much of a do over is it for me? And he's in such a bad state, but you can tell the camaraderie that they have as friends because at that moment it wasn't important for anything else but for them to comfort their friend, to be there for Phil. And I agree with you. Phil was outside of Mitch, he was one of my favorite characters in the movie because Dan deeper place, and he's a comedian. He's a comedic actor, but he's also a dramatic actor. And the guy had to go to he had a layer of darkness behind that that delivery. And like you said, that fed upness. I'm fed up. I'm sick of everything. It's not about the calf. It's not about these two cowboys. They just happen to be the embodiment of my pain and stress and frustration. And you just happen to be in the line of fire
Yeah.
right now. And so it was like I wouldn't have messed with him at all. He was like he had it up to here. But I just thought that Daniel Stern was underrated in his portrayal in this movie.
Yeah, overall, I think Daniel Stern's he's underrated. Uh, he doesn't get he never got the credit he deserved during his heyday. I mean, especially in the '90s. I mean, I'm not saying every movie he did was, worthy of 5 stars or anything, or his performances were all that, but he was a very good, as you said, comedic actor and dramatic actor, and he could balance both at the same time very well. And a lot of people can't do that. Not both. They can do one or the other, but it's hard to do both. And I think it's a rare talent that can. Um, but yeah, you're right. He's a very underrated character in this movie. But I felt this was really about Mitch. But even though I think it was all about all three, they needed something out of this adventure, out of this little vacation. Because obviously Mitch didn't know if his marriage was going to work. And that kind of crossed my eyes a little bit when in the beginning. I'm not meaning to go back, but when she said we'll go to Florida by ourselves, I'm not telling you it's okay for you to go. I'm saying I don't want you there. I was like, oh, marriage problems. When did this happen? I guess she picked up on it too, that he just was so lost. And so that was his story arc. He needed to find himself.
And here's one thing, and we find that out. But before we get there, we find out what his one thing is at the end of the movie. But like all of them had a story arc. Phil's character arc was to stand up to the bullies.
Yeah,
and he stood up to the bullies. The story arc for Ed was to cutting in and out a little bit. It looked kind of cool though.
it did look cool for a second.
But Ed's story arc was to be the I don't know, man.
We're back in the '80s, baby.
StreamYard, get it together, StreamYard. All right.
But at least it's not going out on you.
Right, that's right. Oh, important. Zoom, I've been gone. but yeah. So Ed's story arc was for him to not leave, because he says that he always had a problem to run away from his problems, type of thing, like his father. But instead, he decided to stay and continue doing the cattle drive, and see everybody else was like, "Dang the cattle! Let's leave them and go back." And so all those cows would have died.
Yeah, that was an important part of the movie as well, that he stayed. Out of all of them, you would have thought Mitch would have stayed, because Curly always told him how important it was. But Mitch was like, "No, I'm going," and Ed was like, "I'm staying." And Phil stayed with him, and of course, they knew nothing about cattle and how to lead it back home.
It's like herding like a bunch of children. But then coming up over the range, we see our champion Mitch with Curly's hat. He comes in and helps drive the cattle, and just the rest of the movie is just them talking on the cattle drive. Phil's trying to find out how to set up the VCR. That's hilarious. Yes, how old this movie is, guys. They're trying to set up a VCR. But anyway, but it just then we get to the climactic part of the movie with the storm and them crossing the river, and Norm and Mitch almost drowning, and then the other two, Phil and Ed, saving them. And then we get back to, I guess, to make it to Colorado, where they needed to take the cattle. and everybody is there, which I didn't know how everybody got there, but okay. I guess as I walking in the direction. Also, I don't even realize when the dentist, when did they leave? I totally forgot that they left early.
Yeah, they left early on, before Curly died. I
You know
forget the
why they
reason.
left? Yeah,
I forget the reason. It
I
was
blanked out on that.
wasn't that important to the story. It was just like, okay, we got to write y'all out. And I know what you're gonna say. They
No,
black. Oh, you ain't gonna say they wrote them out because they were
no,
black.
no, no, Brandon, you did it. Thank you, racist. Well, all right, no, no. I said I was gonna say that they wrote him out because they're like all the other characters. Honestly, was insignificant. It was about Mitch, Ed, and Phil. Those were the
Yeah,
characters that the movie's about. It really wasn't about the side characters and their little side story arcs. And they did get a story arc because he's like, hey, well, me and my dad can do it, you know. And they're like, well, there's no need because we're gonna sell these cattle off for meat. Uh, and uh, and you know, as a kid, I didn't notice. I didn't think about it.
yeah, I
It
didn't think
didn't
about
dawn
it
on me.
either.
But as an adult, I looked at it. I'm like, oh, it's terrible. I was
And you know
like,
what else? You know what else? The look on their face, like we did all that, so you just could kill them. I mean, it is like they're gonna die anyway. If we leave them, they die. If we bring them home, they die.
but
It was that was a sad, tender moment to know that you helped bring them to their death.
but but also it's a state of the world at that
Yeah,
time. So those type of things like cattle drives and stuff like that, like tourist cattle drives and stuff, seemed like it was going out of business. Like there
yeah,
was no profitable thing. So they have to find profit somehow, and the way they find profit is now selling the cattle for livestock for meat. So unfortunately, that's where it took. But they got attached to the cattle, especially Mitch, and he got attached to Norman, and that kind of leads us to the end of the movie because Mitch says to them, "It's all about that one thing, finding that one thing." And then they said, "Well, what is that?" And then they do like a hard cut to his children saying, "Dad," and he hugging them, and then his wife comes, and Phil ends up with Helen Slater. So hey, good luck
yeah,
there,
that didn't
buddy.
really make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, they didn't spend time together at all. But
So
okay,
I was like, okay, but I don't buy it. But okay,
it was just the writer tacking on something at the end, like let's give him a happy ending, and
yeah,
that's almost a happy ending. Then for Ed, he's gonna start a family. He's gonna try to start a family because he's afraid of becoming a father, taking responsibility for another life. And so that was his story arc, is by taking responsibility for the life of these cattle. Helps him to start being ready to take responsibility for another life. So, um, but yeah, Phil found his smile. Not Phil, but Mitch found. I keep wanting to call him Phil. Mitch found his smile and became the husband that his wife desired him to be again, the father that his kids desired him to be. And he says he's not going to quit his job. He's going to do his job better. He's going to do
yeah,
everything better. And they got a pet cow named Norman,
yeah. And
which
that was a.
which
I
it would
mean,
work in real life.
I
Oh my god!
I forgot about it. But I was like, yeah, I could see it. They bonded. I mean, he helped him, deliver him, and it was a sweet moment. Of course, as far as the rest of the family go, they got to be. You can't be serious. I actually think that's what the wife said, but don't quote me on it. But yeah, it was it's a Hollywood ending movie type thing. I don't think anybody in their right mind would want to take a cow home as a pet. If you don't own a ranch or anything.
Yeah, but I think for Mitch though, he couldn't see he what he had to go through to have that Norman be born, he
Yeah,
couldn't dare see Norman go off and be slaughtered. And so he has an attachment to that specific cow.
agreed.
Uh, but yeah, overall, the movie was a fun adventure. Actually, I really enjoyed Billy Crystal in it. He usually plays that type of character in his movies, like the guy that's down and out, burnt out on something, and
Yeah,
finds something that kind of restores him. That was his niche in the 90s, 80s, and 90s in his, especially his solo films. Uh, but uh, but but in this movie, I thought that uh, although it was about him and he was great, Daniel Stern shined, and then Ed didn't shine as much. Bruno didn't shine as much. God rest his soul. But he did a good job. He is very memorable, and he is one of my favorite people in the movie as well. I thought the movie by itself was just a really well crafted bit of 90s, man. A bit of
yeah,
it's a good comedic western. I don't know if that's a category, but I would call it comedic. It's like it's a western, but it's not. It's not
yeah.
action comedy, but it's a comedic. It's a western, but it's a comedic western. I don't know if you call them. I don't know if that's a real thing.
It's for me, it's like one of those rare breeds, if you will. Dusty roads here. Feel. I know it, but we're having fun here. But it's just one of those rare breeds, cowboy western comedies. That you don't see anymore. You didn't see much back then either. Really, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with this movie. And you talk about Billy Crystal standing out. He did. Daniel Stern stands out. Bruno Kirby stands out a little bit. But Kirby, man, he's the one that stole it for me. I mean, Jack Palance. Is that how you pronounce his last name? Palance?
Balance, yeah. Jack Balance.
But he's the one
Jack,
that really stood out for me.
yeah. You know what? And the thing about Jack, I think honestly, this, in my opinion, like Jack has a long history in films. He was in Tango and Cash. He was
Yeah.
in several. His filmography stretches back to the, I'll say, 50s. He was one of those
Definitely.
Hollywood actors. Like, have you ever seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Would he was almost like Leonardo DiCaprio's character,
Rick
like a
Dalton.
guy that was, and he came along as the Yul Brenners, as the Charles Bronson's, as the Clint Eastwood later on in life. He was that type of guy. But honestly, in my opinion, City Slickers is his definitive role. It is his definitive role. Like when I think of Jack
Yeah,
Palance,
Kirby. I think
huh?
Kirby.
I think Curly.
I mean Curly, yeah. I say
Yeah,
Kirby for whatever reason.
yeah, you kept talking about. I thought you were talking about Bruno Kirby for a minute, but yeah, Curly.
What happened?
I think
I'm having so much fun. I don't know. I'm getting the names confused. But
maybe there he is.
yeah, I'm here. Did I leave?
You froze for a minute there, buddy.
I'm not used to freezing.
Yeah, usually it's me freezing. You freezing. No, but
But yeah, I agree with you. Kirby is
Curly.
Curly. I keep saying Kirby. Oh man, but Curly is his definite role, defining role. When I think City Slickers, I think of Curly. you know, that when I actually picked this movie, when I thought of City Slickers, I was like, oh, Kirby. I mean, Curly. I can't. Oh my god.
I don't know, guys. Just say Palance.
I think of Jack.
There you
Palance.
go.
Yeah.
My goodness.
This is what happens when you go live on the Markout Movie Podcast for the first time. It's like the first episode all over again.
It really is, guys. Like it's just, this is experimental. It's all day, all out. But anyway, no, Curly. So Jack Curly Palance is the best part of the movie, and for him to be gone so early in the movie was the only letdown. But to me, I'm ready to give you my marks. For me, that wasn't enough to deter my score. I loved,
No.
so I give it. I'm going to give this movie 5 markouts out of 5. I think that it is a classic movie. Um, it's one of Billy Crystal's best. It's one of Daniel Stern's best, and I didn't realize it at the time watching this as a kid. But it is truly one of Daniel Stern's best movies that he was in, and his character. That's why I was okay with part two, because at least we got Daniel back. That was what I was thinking. I wish that we had everyone, but at least we
Yeah.
got Daniel, and I was okay with that.
But yeah, I agree. It gets a 5 markouts for me too. It didn't deter anything. I mean, I have some gripes about it. It's not a 100% perfect movie, but I'm smiling throughout the whole movie. I'm laughing throughout the whole movie. Even when Curly dies, there's still more to be had with these characters. There's still some growth for these characters. So he played his part well. He had a purpose in this movie, even after death. So I take no points away. My only real criticism to this movie is the Helen Slater character with Phil. I just don't see it. She started talking to Mitch first, and he's like, "I'm married." It was just it seemed like she connected with him more than she connected with
Well,
Phil.
I would say that, yeah, but I would say that once she saw him stand up to the guys at the end of the movie, like towards that
Yeah,
little
yeah,
part,
yeah. Him standing
that,
up,
that probably saved, uh, cleared it up
he
for.
saw him in a new light.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
But the thing is, it still came out of left field because you didn't really see them
it did.
interact with one another. Also, I would say this, and it's not to say anything badly, but I think that the movie was a little bloated with characters that was non-significant. Like I didn't really find a lot of significance with the campfire, the cook. He was an insignificant character. Uh, the cattle hands, they was only there to be antagonists. Um,
Yeah,
then the dentist and his son. It was a little subplot of him. Not, I don't know what that little subplot is. I guess he doesn't really want to follow in his father's footsteps or do what his father does. But
yeah,
I felt like of I felt like it was a waste of a character. So
yeah,
maybe they developed that a little bit more. I would have been more prone to like those characters a little bit more. So I feel like it could be a little bloated. Helen Slater, I love her, but she just was bloated as well. She wasn't. There's no real reason for her to be there except for that conflict at the very beginning,
yeah.
and then Phil's the ending for Phil. That was her. That's the whole reason for her character being there.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree at all. But I actually forgot about the cook. That's how insignificant they were. I forgot. But but I agree with you. I agree with you. But I did want to ask you one question before we close this out. Comedies today, how come you say they're dated? These films that were made in the 90s or late 80s. How come we enjoy them more though?
That's a
What do you
good
think?
question. Because even though they're dated when it comes to like technology and some things that they could get away with.
Yeah.
Um, but we enjoy them more because we grew up in that era that allowed us to enjoy them more. But we cringe a little bit now because we're like, ooh, you can't do, because we live in a now post PG world. We live in a world where, but we like in wrestling, we experienced the Attitude Era, but now we also experienced PG era of WWE, so we know what it's like on both sides. I know I'm all over the place. That's the ADHD, but But let me dial it back in.
It
So
wasn't that. It was just when you mentioned the PG era, I was like, ooh.
yes, exactly. But the thing is, but the reason why we enjoy these a little bit more versus like movie like they could like this type of movie could have came out like this year, but it would be drastically different from what we originally had. Like there
Yeah,
wouldn't be you couldn't get away with that stuff. You couldn't get away with killing the cattle at the end. They would have just did somewhere Phil, not Phil. I keep wanting to call him Phil. That's my problem. You say Kirby, uh, Mitch. We would have had a scene where Mitch would have let the cattle go.
yeah,
Wouldn't he have done that? Like if we made this movie today, but realistically, you can't. This movie is realistic in that sense of you can't let them go. They're not your
yeah,
property. That you cannot do that. But um, they wouldn't get away with this stuff today. But I love that we was able to get away with it then. They for me they hold up in that sense of
yeah.
that's real comedy, and it's not
You know,
sugar coated comedy that pulls punches.
yeah. I agree with you, by the way. But I also think there's another reason that we enjoy that era more than we do today. I mean, I'm not saying there's not any good comedies today. There is some good ones, and there's some really bad ones. I think it's star power. You don't have the stars as you did then, and I think that goes with every genre in film. You don't have the filmmakers either. You have some good ones, but you don't really. You think Billy Crystal, Daniel Stern, Bruno Kirby, Jack Palance, 1990 or
One.
91. Man, you want to go see that, right? I mean, you live in that era, you want to go see that movie.
Well,
And
Billy
this,
Crystal's name alone on the
yeah, Billy
Mallard.
Crystal alone gets you there. He was a huge star back then. I mean, huge. And Daniel Stern was just coming off Home Alone, so people had eyes on him.
Yeah, after post Home Alone, pre Bushwhacked. It's like it was like that little stage of Daniel Stern's career. Uh, yeah. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, go ahead though.
So today, I would say maybe it's Jake Gyllenhaal. You know,
That'll be interesting. I have questions for you about a sequel, but anyway, go ahead.
but maybe he would be maybe he would play Mitch today. Uh, Maybe Channing Tatum or Jonah Hill or somebody like that would play Mitch. I can see Jonah really in that role.
Well, this is what I would see. It's what I would like to do. It's what I
And
like.
Channing,
This is what I like to see happen. All right, we're next week. We're gonna be talking about City Slickers 2, The Quest for Curly's Gold. Um, and that one it leaves us with a cliffhanger as setting up for a sequel. I don't know if you remember that or not, but it does. But obviously, didn't happen because Jack died. Um, and I don't know how much it was going to happen because I don't think two did as well as one. Obviously,
yeah, two
um,
did really well. It almost made 200 million.
oh, did two? Did really?
On the first one. The first one almost made 200 million, and that's back in '91. So that's really good. So I don't know what the second one made. I doubt it did as well. But I don't know the reason. I would have enjoyed seeing the third film. I mean,
Yeah.
I looking back, I enjoyed City Slickers too. I didn't like it as much as this one.
This is my point though. Like I would love to see a City Slickers 3, but I would love to see it with now an older Mitch, and he's trying to get his son to loosen up. So he decides to take his son on a cattle run, and his son is actually Jake Gyllenhaal returning. And
I would
that'll
I
be
wouldn't
interesting.
hate that.
That'll be interesting. And then obviously we
Definitely
don't have
see it.
Curly, but
No, you don't have Curly. But if you bring back
a
Daniel Stern,
you can bring back Daniel Stern. You could you maybe another person can come along. Maybe Bruno's Ed did have a child. The child he had was a daughter, and now the daughter is coming along. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that's too bloated. But you can have somebody that comes to find out is Curly's lost son that now owns the ranch, does the run, and maybe that person could be
Yeah.
outcast Liam Neeson, because I would love to see Clint Eastwood in the role, but I don't think Clint would be able to do it. Uh, I love to
Never
see.
against Clint though.
Don't go against Clint. I love Clint. I'm a huge
But he
Clint
is like
fan.
9, so I do see your point.
But
He's
I think
really
but I think
old.
Liam I think Liam can do it. I think Josh Brolin would pull it off well. Uh, as like the son of Curly. You know what I'm saying? I think that he
Yeah.
would actually be really good, actually. But yeah, I think that I would love to see this movie, but with Jake Gyllenhaal and starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Billy Crystal, and Daniel Stern returning, and then you can cast somebody else, um, and maybe, but then maybe it'd be different is because the person that's Curly's son isn't as advanced as Curly. So maybe the guy doesn't know everything like Curly does. So maybe he's kind of aloof. And so it's more of not Phil, keep doing it. Mitch teaching him what it's like to be on the cattle run as well. I don't know. Now I'm just spinning, but what's your
Yeah.
thoughts?
I mean, I like the idea of Jake Gyllenhaal coming back and playing his son again, and they go on a little adventure with the cattle to get his head straight. I like that idea. I really think it's the only way you can go if you're going to do a sequel. I think if not, it would get remade, which I'm shocked City Slickers has not been remade. I mean, it was.
I mean, wait, give it some time. Maybe after this
Oh yeah.
podcast, people will be like, "Oh, see, Slickers is buzzing. Let's grab it up."
But yeah, I'd be up for a sequel with your idea. I don't know if you bring back anybody from Curly, his family. I don't think he had anybody. He
His
let that
brother,
woman go.
he had
His
his
brother
brother.
maybe. His
His
brother
brother,
maybe.
his brother was played by him. So
Yeah. But maybe he had a kid, his brother. But Curly himself, he never got with anyone. He said that in talking to Billy, Mitch, the woman he loved, he let her go, and that was it for him as far as relationships go. I think that was it for him for relationships. Period. I think it really tore his soul up.
made him
Curly's a very deep character.
very bitter. Made him a very
Yeah.
bitter old man, private, isolated man. But yeah, I mean, it'd be great to see. And maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll see. We'll see. Like we're gonna do it. But I would love to see. I'd love to see it. I think that it
We
would.
had another guy though.
Huh?
They could maybe talk Rick Moranis into a role.
Maybe.
Now that trio, I would love to see Rick, with Billy. Oh my God, that
Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? But
yeah.
yeah,
Then you throw in Daniel Stern. So
yeah. Like Daniel. Like I love to see older Phil, older Mitch. Unfortunately, Ed has passed away. Bruno Kirby died of cancer, and so unfortunately he wouldn't be able to return. Unfortunately, Curly wouldn't be able to return. But I would love to see. I would love to see even some of the other ones, man, show back up. Like maybe the Shallower brothers. Well, is Josh still living? Josh Mostel? Yeah, he's still living.
I think so.
He's still around.
I'm
Uh,
not sure about David though.
uh,
He could just be retired, but I haven't seen him in anything. At
I'm
least a
looking
decade.
it up now. I believe, yeah, he's still around too. He hasn't acted, but I think that would be great idea to have that. If they had to remake it, I know for people who podcast remake the movie, then I can see them remaking it, but Adam Sandler remaking it and Adam being Mitch. That's the only way that will work. If Adam is Mitch And
I don't trust Sandler with the Western.
but that's the thing. Sandler might go too silly. The thing about
He is.
City Slickers is it never was too silly. It was a Western, but had comedy like placed like sprinkles on top
Yeah.
of it. But it wasn't like. But if you felt like you're still watching the Western the whole time, but with elements of comedy sprinkled in it. Whereas with Adam Sandler, if Adam was to get it, Adam would actually take it and comedy it all up. Like let's put comedy in this, stuff it with comedy, and it will be that that Six movie wherever he had on Netflix. It just
it would be something like that, and that was not a good movie. And I support Adam Sandler. I do. I support him and everything he does. But that was not a good movie, sadly.
Yeah, but I think that if he was, but if anybody was to remake this movie, I could see him doing it, or I could see Ben Stiller. He'll probably take it a little bit more serious. I know you don't like Ben. I know you don't like Ben as much, but Ben is no replacement for Billy. Let me go ahead and say that Ben is not Billy. Ben is not Billy.
But he would play Mitch. No doubt about it.
He'll play Mitch. Yeah, but I can't think of someone that would be the feel to his Mitch that would work. Owen Wilson, maybe. That would be the only one that I can think of. I can even see
I can see Dana Carvey.
Will Smith. Not Will Smith, but Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell would work as a Phil.
David Spade maybe too.
David Spade. But if it's David, I want to see Adam. That's the thing. You gotta cast them right. You don't want to see Ben. You don't want to see Ben with David. You gotta put them. You gotta put people together which you want to see.
Who I would love to see, and maybe have Sandler play Ed. I know that's kind of a stretch, the Playboy type character. Have Jim Carrey actually play Mitch, more serious.
Yeah, I honestly can't see them together. I think the world would explode if these two dudes was in a movie together like that.
And maybe throw in Will Smith as Phil. Let him be really silly with it. Because Will could be silly.
Yeah.
But
Will would have to be Will would be Mitch. Honestly, listen. If Will Smith is in a movie, he's the main. If you put Will Adam and Ben or whoever else, even Jim, if you put them all in a movie together, Will's name is going to go number one on the Malar. His name would be the top bill. Would be Will Smith movie.
I guess he's had more blockbusters than anybody, but I wouldn't. For me, I would put Jim above him.
But you can't. No.
I know it wouldn't work. The movie wouldn't work at all. They would try to up one each other. It wouldn't work, and that's probably why they've never done a movie together.
That's why they have.
It's the same thing with Arnold and Sly. The reason they didn't work together back in the day, they wanted to be the main guy.
But
you gotta work together.
I know people's like this has been going on for so long, but yeah. We'll go ahead and kill this. We thank you all for listening. Tell them what we got next week.
Well, you've already mentioned it several times, but we got City Slickers 2. Part 2.
Go.
Yeah. Which, I got this movie confused with 2 because I thought at the end he showed up as the brother, but I guess he shows up in the very beginning of Part 2 as the brother, as the twin brother. But I thought it was at the very end of the first one. Because I was expecting it, and it's like, it didn't happen. It's like, wait, what happened? Where's he at? It's like, maybe he's got to be in Part 2. It's got to be at the very opening scene in Part 2 or something.
I think that's what I actually did too. Most of the time, not with that though. I did it with. That's why I thought that he was in the movie longer because I kept fusing 2 with 1 because like they all like that. Yeah, I hope you all enjoyed our ranting and raving about City Slickers from 1991. Next week, we're planning on doing City Slickers 2, Quest for Curly's Gold. After that, Brandon is going to hit you with a little bit of maybe summer of 1984 by himself. And then the week after that, hopefully we'll have Mick Strong, who is a special effects genius. It was on did Nightmare on M Street,
3 and
a
4.
little bit of 3 and 4, more 4. He's also did Candyman. He has also did one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. I mean, you name it. There's so many other things.
And Critters 2.
And
That's
Critters
big for
too.
me. Big for me.
Yeah. But yeah, we look forward to talking to him.
Talk about marking out. I'm gonna mark out with that one.
We're gonna mark out. We're gonna have fun marking out. But yeah, hey, I'm Aaron Whitlow.
I'm Brandon Spivey.
What are we, Brandon?
We are the Markout Movie Podcasters. Oh yes.
Thanks for watching.